Some good gains for the beginning of the week, but now we actually have the beginning of a new month, beginning of a new financial year here in Australia, and it looks as though we've got some changes going on in terms of some currencies and potentially the bonds happening as we actually speak right now. Could this be a bit of a shift in the guard? Let's take a look at the charts and we'll see what's actually coming about with all of this. Hello and welcome to Strategic Markets, your place for fundamental and technical analysis all at once, just as Yash normally says. Now today, Yash is not with us today in relation to some personal reasons for today. He'll be back on the weekend though. So in the meantime, you've got the pleasure of my company just for today, and we'll see how things go just in terms of breaking down some of the major headlines that are going on for the day, and then we'll jump into some of the technical analysis in relation to what's going on with the charts since we actually caught up with you over the weekend. Now, in relation to things that's actually going on, well, firstly, let's just have a look at the TLT, which is the bonds. Now, the bonds overall, like I was saying on the weekend, we're actually going pretty well in relation to some fairly strong price action, as you can see. We actually had some recovery above the VWAP to begin with, and overall we were having some higher highs and higher lows until last night's trade, in terms of Tuesday's trade over in the US, where we actually fell below that VWAP and below the prior support level, which was formed back in January. And you might be saying, well, what's actually going on? Well, a major headline actually occurred in relation to the yields over in the US basically rising as the yen has hit the 40-year low. Now, this is some major news overall, because essentially Japanese intervention itself is actually potentially occurring overall, with the yen hitting fresh 40-year lows. What does that basically mean? Well, in terms of major currency action, it's a lot. So in terms of the Abenomics, this has actually been in play for quite some time in relation to very, very low interest rates over in Japan for many, many years. Essentially, the interest rates are potentially going to rise over in Japan, and this is actually causing a few ripples in the overall world economics. So in the short term, at least, there actually are thoughts now that the Dow futures are actually going to be reducing in the short term overall. Now, it really isn't a dramatic effect in that short term overall. We've actually had a couple of good days in the markets, as we'll see in the charts shortly. But we've got a new half of the year actually beginning to start. So people are actually now starting to say, well, hang on, we may actually have a bit of a negative start to this next half of the year. So we'll have a look at that right now as we speak. So when we take a look at the Dow, which is one in the headline right there, the Dow futures, well, we've had a couple of decent days, and in terms of the Dow itself, or in terms of the diamonds, as we like to actually have a look at in this particular channel itself, in terms of the diamonds ETF, 522 is what the diamonds ETFs closed at yesterday. 521 is what it's expected to open at in a few hours' time. Currently it's 7 a.m. over in New York right now. As we know, opens at 9:30. So in about 2.5 hours' time, based on the time of this recording, it's going to open maybe like 1 point lower. Not really much to write home about at this point in time. If we take a look at, say, the other indices, if we have a look at, say, the SPY, not much of a difference either. That's 746 that it closed at yesterday, potentially opening at 745 in a couple of hours' time. The Qs as well, not really opening much lower either, from 736 yesterday to open at, say, 733. So even though the headline is basically signaling all doom and gloom, it's not really a dramatic effect overall there. The Russell as well has been performing quite well. As you can see, it's basically bounced right off the short-term moving averages there, and your Ichimoku lagging indicator really, really good in terms of the Russell as well there too. And essentially, if we take a look at the IWM, which is the ETF, and you'll actually see where it's actually opening up in terms of in a couple of hours' time, pretty much unchanged. So at the end of the day, we're not really seeing any dramatic effect in terms of the indices itself at this point in time. So really nothing too major. But it was very, very interesting to actually see the TLT itself closing beneath that support level, which is really beginning to show that there is a little bit of caution going on in terms of the bonds at least. So do observe and do basically see whether or not this follows through. And obviously, we're going to be starting to see it come back into this range that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, because you can see that's exactly where it has been about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. What's that mean for the rates? Well, in terms of the 10-year rates, that's slightly increased because of that reduction from yesterday's trade, but it hasn't been enough to get back above the short-term moving averages there. And if we take a look over on the left-hand side with the Ichimoku curve, we're not forming higher highs and higher lows in the lagging indicator at this point. Even if we take a look at the Tenkan Sen trend line, there has been no change in that blue line as yet. And the baseline is coming back down towards Tenkan Sen, but we're not seeing any crossover at this point either. So nothing really dramatic going on at this point in time overall. In relation to the VIX, well, the VIX is still very, very low. That's the volatility index. So really nothing of any major consequence at this point either in the grand scheme of things. If we take a look at some of the other instruments we look at as well in the grand scheme of things as well, Brent crude, lower highs and lower lows in relation to the Tenkan Sen lagging indicator, and we're very, very well below any of the short-term moving averages as well as the 200-day moving average as well. So really no sense of any indication that it's actually going to be jumping up above any of these short-term moving averages or even testing that volume profile area from 2023 at this stage. Uranium hasn't been something that we've covered for quite a while, and if you take a look at that as well, lower highs, lower lows in the lagging indicator, and well below any of the short-term moving averages here as well. We are fairly much in a downtrend here. The Tenkan Sen blue line has been forming a lower highs, lower lows for quite some time and well below the baseline there as well. So we're really in a downtrend in terms of uranium as well. The dollar's been forming higher highs and higher lows all the way through, well above the short-term moving averages, higher highs on the lagging indicator there as well. Tenkan Sen blue line above the baseline. We're in a strong uptrend there in relation to the US dollar. So really, it really seems as though the indices are fairly stable at this point. There is still some concern in terms of the overall market in relation to the dollar, and we're still a fair amount of weakness in terms of things like the uranium overall. Keep an eye in terms of everything that's going on in relation to the bonds, obviously, and obviously we've got a lot of weakness in terms of Brent crude at this point. We'll have a quick look in terms of gold and silver as well. Not much change since the weekend in relation to that. In terms of gold, well, essentially in relation to that, that's still extremely weak at this point. We looked as though we may be potentially getting some form of a bounce going on there, but we're still getting lower highs and lower lows really at this stage more than anything else. And Tenkan Sen blue line still below the baseline overall there and well below any of the short-term moving averages at this point. So gold, extremely weak. Silver, pretty much the same. Thought we might be getting something going on here, not really at this point overall. We may be getting some higher highs popping through. Unless this starts forming higher lows, it's not really showing much in terms of silver whatsoever, especially with that Tenkan Sen forming lower highs and lower lows and well below the baseline. And we're definitely below all of those short-term moving averages right there. The interesting one is copper. When it comes to copper, we're still definitely forming lower highs and lower lows on the lagging indicator there. We've got the Tenkan Sen definitely forming the lower trend overall there, and it's definitely well below the baseline as well. So there's really, really no strength whatsoever in relation to this. And the biggest thing about that is, as well as the mere fact, especially with copper is highly correlated with a lot of the technology aspects, a lot of the strength in the market as well. And if you've really lost that, then it's not really holding a lot of strength in the market overall, even as the market is actually still increasing. So that's really, really showing a lot of very, very interesting dynamics in the market overall. The biggest thing to note as a caveat on this one, though, is the fact that we actually are still above the yearly VWAP at this point, being this green line over here, and above the 100-day moving average, being the white line. So definitely keep an eye on that. But we would need to be forming higher highs and higher lows bouncing off these lines. We're not forming that at this point in time. So watch as we start to come back down to test these lines and whether or not we actually bounce off this line to actually start forming some more strength or not. That'd be the big thing. Iron ore, really nasty, really, really nasty. Definitely forming lower highs and lower lows on a lagging indicator there. On top of that as well, the Tenkan Sen, very, very much in terms of lower highs and lower lows, as well as a declining baseline as well. And the short-term moving averages, this is a nasty downtrend if you've ever seen one. Bitcoin, pretty much the same in terms of the way that's going, in terms of the downward trend. Lower highs and lower lows in the lagging indicator. The Tenkan Sen is forming lower highs and lower lows as well, and the baseline is also dragging along with it. Short-term moving averages along with lines, and we're actually now testing this support line here from February of 2021. So watch this space. Can't see it actually heading in the upward direction here in terms of getting above this resistance line at this point. It would need to do that in the first place. And if it does get above that resistance line here from March of 2021, it would then be getting above this short-term moving average of the EMA 15. So that will be a very, very interesting line to see if that is the case. Ethereum, fairly much the same. What will be very, very fascinating to watch if this does occur is if we do start forming back towards this support line back from April 2025, this lagging indicator here of the Ichimoku will actually break through the unit price there as well. So that will be actually really, really interesting to watch. We're already seeing the Tenkan Sen blue line coming down as it is. Will that drag the baseline down with it as well? Watch this space. And the short-term moving averages are also falling down as well. So as you can see, not really much change from what we're actually covering on the weekend. And we're still watching all of these levels with a lot of interest overall. But yeah, a lot of weakness in certain areas, Brent crude in particular, and it was a lot of strength in certain aspects as well, especially when it comes to the dollar. It looks as though certain indices are still showing some strength, but definitely do keep an eye on some of those short-term moving averages and whether or not some of those levels actually do break as well. But I'll leave it there for now. It's a very, very short summary of what's going on there, with obviously not much change going on from the weekend. So definitely have a look back over the weekend summary there as well. And if you do have any queries or any concerns, then by all means, yeah, feel free to drop them down in the comments down below as well. And more than happy to address anything that's down there as well. Obviously not financial advice, but more than happy to actually entertain any queries or any comments as well there too. And we can have a quick squiz of those. But thanks a lot for all of your support there as well, especially you, Mark. You're always giving us plenty of support there and plenty of commentary, which is greatly appreciated. But if you do have any particular tickers or any particular stocks that you'd like us to have a bit of a look at as well in the future too, feel free to drop it in the comments as well. More than happy to take a look at that. But other than that, we look forward to welcoming Yash back on the weekend as well. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your trading week. Do remember as well, it is the 4th of July coming up towards the end of this week as well. So a bit of a shortened trading week over in the US and expect a bit of quiet, especially here in the Australian markets towards the end of the week as well. So we'll see you on the weekend. And until then, safe trading and catch up with you soon. Bye for now.